It comes and goes. We're out here chasing a feeling.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Feels Out Loud, brought to you by Becoming Together Therapy and Wellness. This is your host, Becky McNattin, along with host Tara Martini. We are glad to have you listening as we live and share stories of mental health today.
Becky, I'm so excited about today's episode.
Me too.
I don't know how many times I tell my clients, crying is good for you. Get those tears out. And now I get to just say, listen to episode 58, because now we're giving them the scientific evidence as far as why it is so great for you.
I love that.
So I dedicate today's episode to all the big feelers out there, the individuals who cry as they read beautifully written words, or tear up as they witness a sweet moment unfold in front of them, or weep as they watch a sad scene unfold in a film. Because really, to me, to cry is to feel, and to feel is to be human. I truly believe it is not a weakness or a flaw. I think it is a gift. I think it's quite the opposite of a weakness. I want to quote Charlotte Bronte: crying does not indicate that you are weak. Since birth, it has always been a sign that you are alive.
Wow. What a quote.
What a quote.
And you have me thinking already about how something flips, that crying means, or tears means something different than a sign that you're alive. Because that's beautifully put. And I think most people would say, oh my gosh, since birth, it has always been a sign that you're alive. They would say, yeah, I like that. But somewhere along the way, we develop a thought process that is really different from that. That there is, it's flawed somehow, as you mentioned just recently, and that it is a kind of an inherent character default.
It is. It is. And I didn't include it in this because I think it is something that we hear so often. It is that universal, belief that we're inundated with about men, in that to be stoic is to be strong. To be stoic is not to feel, right? And that is a sign of a man. To cry is to be weak. So we hold our emotions inside, where it is, and to me, it's the most really elementary or basic thing. And as I found that quote, I was like, it is. Think about when a child is born, you are waiting for what? You are waiting for the baby to cry.
Yes.
And everyone is waiting to hear that sound as an indicator the baby's okay.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
And then everybody's relieved. And so it is a sign of life. But yet, like you said, somewhere along the way, we as a culture say, actually, don't do that.
Yeah.
Right? Even with babies, right?
Yes.
Pacify them. Make them stop crying. It is not okay to do that.
Yep.
How that message gets sent to people, when what we're going to learn today is this idea of, we have learned as a society, don't cry. But what we'll learn is crying heals. Tears are made up of things that need to be released from our body.
Well, it's going to be an interesting reframe.
It
The
is.
experience of what is a notation of a need and a sharing of an internal experience. It's an externalization of that.
Yep.
I cannot wait. We're talking about the power of tears today.
We are.
And such an interesting topic. Right now, though, we're going to take a short commercial break.
Okay.
But stay tuned as we talk through this power of crying. Thank you for listening to Feels Out Loud. We will be back in just a moment.
In a world full of strangers, you don't know that's right. All you see is danger.
Welcome back to Feels Out Loud, brought to you by Becoming Together Therapy and Wellness. I am Becky McNattin, along with Tara Martini. Let's dive right back into our discussion on the power of tears.
Let's do that. So, as a former English teacher, of course, I had to find another quote
Well, we
from
like quotes.
another author. So, I would love to know both of our thoughts on the following quote. We need never be ashamed of our tears. This is from Great Expectations. You brought up such a good point in the first segment. Where do you think this shame comes from?
Well, I'm listening to that quote. Even we need never be ashamed of our tears, and I will call myself out. I often am.
Mm,
So I will just, if listeners, if you are
mm,
like, but I am,
yes.
okay, Becky is
Yeah.
right there with you. I think tears are experienced as a vulnerability
Mhm.
somewhere along the line, and they may or may not be.
Mhm.
But my guess is there is an outside understanding of something that
Mhm.
we may not be in a space to verbalize or share, and
Mm.
so sometimes then comes with I. I'm showing you an aspect of me that I don't necessarily want to right now.
Okay. Yeah.
But perceived judgment.
Mhm.
That I would guess shame often comes from what we're receiving back.
Mhm.
And if there's those of you out there who are saying, well, I do get ashamed by tears sometimes, uh, this might be messaging that you've received over the course of a long time, and you're
Right.
not alone in that.
Right.
This isn't a one event in our life that we could point this back to and say
Right.
that's where that developed.
Yep.
I think externally we judge people on how they're responding to things.
I think you're absolutely right. And I think too it's important to point out what you said. It doesn't necessarily mean I feel unsafe with the other person, so I'm ashamed.
Hmm.
I could feel safe with that other person.
For sure.
That person could be my partner or a family member or whatever, but we are programmed to apologize, to feel shame, to whatever it is when we cry or shed tears or tear up,
Mhm.
where it is how wonderful it would be if we could just have tears and not feel that automatic response
Mhm.
of, I'm sorry.
Yeah, well, you had me thinking about something just now too, and I have a sense that for people, their tears become their experience of shame because they feel like they're putting something on the other person or people in the
Mm,
space, and they're saying this experience is burdensome for you,
mm,
and I'm sorry about that.
yep,
Kind of writing something about how it's received or
yep.
perceived, and I'm sorry I'm doing that to you.
That's a very good point. And I think one of the things too is I so often have this discussion with whether it's family or you and I will discuss this. I discuss it with a certain client in particular a lot because both of us are in the same position. That concept of being a big feeler,
Hmm.
of just, for me, I for sure tear up every day. And it doesn't mean I'm sad
Oh, for
every
sure.
day.
Yeah.
It just means whether it's I'm an empath or I am just someone who, whether it is I definitely was thinking of myself as I was writing that intro where I'm like, you watch a beautiful scene unfold or whatever. I'm thinking of like times I've teared up or cried because
In the last day.
yes, literally,
Yeah.
where because it doesn't have to be sadness, it can be joy, it can be witnessing love, it
For
can be all
sure.
those things. And I feel deeply. And it is, I think, I'm sure we have all, over the course of time, had a friend or client or colleague or family member who feels deeply. And just that is how we experience the world.
Hmm.
And most of those people, I would bet, have shame around that identity. And
I totally believe that.
what an amazing thing just to produce maybe a little bit of shift by the end of the episode today,
Mm.
in that to see it as a gift versus a burden.
Mhm.
So let's try and do that today.
Let's do it.
Okay. So I found this incredible article. I loved it even more because the study that they used was based out of the Ramsey Medical Center in Minnesota.
Okay.
So then it just, anything regional.
Yes.
So the science and soul of tears, how crying is self-care. And then when you see the magic word self-care, it just is right up our alley as far as therapeutic, by Dr. Lynn McCarthy. And so we're going to explore tears through their lens today. So we're going to convince all the people out there today that crying is healthy. You need to do it. So whether you are looking at it through a therapeutic lens or a scientific lens, one of these things I hope resonates with you today for you to understand, like, wow, it is really a healthy, cleansing thing to do, to cry. So the biology of tears, let's break it down. I don't know if you know this. I did know this before, but I bet you some of our listeners did not. Humans are the only species known to shed emotional tears. So animals will cry out of physical pain. We, though, are the only ones to cry from heartbreak, empathy, joy, or grief. According to biochemist Dr. William Frey, who has studied tears for decades, emotional tears are chemically different from basal everyday or reflux irritant tears.
Interesting.
And this to me is so fascinating. I told you off the air that when I've worked with preschoolers in the past, I mean, obviously I use basic wording, but I teach them about how when you cry out of just something bothers you, you have something in your eye, that tear, that chemical makeup is different than if you cry tears of joy or if you cry tears of sadness or anger. And that just always blows the kids' minds.
Yes.
But it is true that your chemical makeup is different, which is so fascinating. Wow. Emotional tears contain higher concentrations of stress-related hormones and a natural painkiller. Essentially, our tears are biochemically designed.
That's amazing.
I think it is. And maybe I get too excited about this, but I just think this stuff is so fascinating.
Well, when we reconceptualize or seek to conceptualize the purpose of tears, it actually is a tool then.
It is.
It's a bodily tool.
Yep, it absolutely is.
If it serves as a natural painkiller and a release of stress-related hormones.
Yep, it absolutely. And so if you think of it that way, that it's a release of the stress-related hormones, that is why, if you look at it like it is detoxifying your body, then it is so important to do. So it is, and how many times have we said this, even just as girlfriends, like, oh, I had such a good cry today, right? The expression, I had a good cry, right? That is literally because your body feels lighter, more regulated. It isn't just like a random saying, like it comes from somewhere, right?
Yes.
We have detoxed. Our body, our nervous system has gone now to that rest and digest mode. Our heart rate lowers. Our whole body just gets to a more regulated state. So everybody should have a good cry, right?
Everybody should.
I know.
Well, and it sounds like with some frequency too.
Yes. Yeah.
Like not like a good cry 15 years ago.
Yeah, girl, no. No, for humans like me, I'm like 15 years ago, honey. Like talk 15 minutes. What? Yeah.
Well, and you have said that emotional tears are emotional regulation.
They
too.
are.
Say more about that.
Yeah. And we talk about this all the time in the office, right? We talk all about like,
yes, we do.
How does one regulate our emotions? So when emotions build up, the nervous system seeks release. And I talk about this with clients, and I would talk about it with my students as a school counselor, is what we don't want is to push down our emotions. Because when we push down our emotions, if you think about it, you're pushing it down. Well, you push it down and then you keep pushing new ones down, right? It's only building up. It's creating that wall. It isn't going away,
No, it's not going anywhere.
right? So there comes a point where it has to explode and like be released.
Mhm.
And so it's key for the nervous system's sake, to release. Crying is that release. So part of what psychologists call emotional regulation is crying being that valve that's
That's a
going
really
to
good way to put it.
regulate. So rather than suppressing it, tears help us process and tears help us release that. So Dr. Judith K. Nelson, a social worker who worked on attachment and crying, states that tears are a sign of safety,
Interesting.
which I love that because I think a lot of people many times think the opposite, right?
Yes.
And we briefly touched on this in the intro, where I said, you can feel safe, right? Like I said to you, just because you're crying doesn't mean you feel unsafe. You can feel very safe with someone.
Yes.
And in many times, that is why you're able to cry,
Absolutely.
because I feel safe being vulnerable with you.
Yep.
We cry most freely in the presence of someone we trust. And my goodness, I mean, we just talked about the last episode about how trust is so important.
Yep.
That's because our tears activate oxytocin and endorphins, fostering connection and comfort. So, wow, if I feel safe, I'm able to let my guard down.
hmm And those tears themselves,
Yep.
if allowed,
Yep.
are an opportunity for connection.
Yep.
In those tears is it becomes the experience of oxytocin, which is a feel good experience.
Yes.
That itself is then needed.
Yep.
Or it becomes a key part of that connection.
Right.
What a
Now,
cool way to look at it.
well, and then it gets me thinking, and especially for people listening right now, or you, Becky, can think about, I, in my mind, can think of the people in my life, you being one of them, that I feel so safe around that if I need to cry, I know that I can cry in front of you. Like
hmm
if I'm tearing up, I can let it go, right? I can actually cry.
hmm
I know there's people in my life where if I'm talking to them and I start to tear up, I know them well enough that I will literally try to force myself to stop
Oh, yes.
and go, okay, sorry, I'm not crying. And then I'm like holding my body in.
Yep. Oh, I have literally said to myself, do not cry right now. Do not
Yes.
cry right now.
Yeah.
I'll put kind of my tongue on the very roof of my mouth to like
Oh,
close it off.
yeah.
Start trying to think about something else. Yes, I think all of us have
Mhm.
and in the moment,
Yep.
not that moment, it can be an interesting exploration on like, well, why are the people how do I trust them? What is different about those relationships
Yes.
than the ones where I don't feel that way? But it's such a cool thought process on. So you're talking about emotional regulation, but you're also talking about bonding,
Yes. And
like
connection.
like developing a beautiful relationship. And I think about for the people who either I have shared tears with
Mhm.
or who I have cried in front of, I do feel closer to those people. It
100%.
would be people who I would say,
Yes.
yes, they're like my people.
I feel safe with those people.
And that's great
Yes.
words to use for it.
And it is not that we are going to go into a therapy session right now, but it's one of those where it does make me think about, hey, as people who are listening, maybe this is a time to reflect and go, oh, yeah, I do have people in my life where I'm like, oh, I don't feel safe crying in front of. Okay, well, why? What about that relationship? Why can't you be vulnerable?
Mhm.
Right?
Right.
Why don't you feel safe enough to? So there's some exploring that you can do. Or the opposite. While that relationship must be so special to me because I can.
hmm
And that says a lot about that relationship.
hmm
So it's pretty cool.
Or if there's a relationship that you say, I trust them so much and yet I'm not crying. Is that a
Mm,
relationship you could say,
wow.
maybe practice it? We're talking
Hmm.
about like having a good cry. Maybe that could be
Yeah.
a person, if you haven't done that before
Yeah.
and you're seeking to reframe what crying and the power of crying or the power of tears,
Yeah.
that maybe is a person you'd say, I maybe should try doing that in front of someone then.
I love that. It's like we're therapists or something.
Yeah.
So it's good to know too when crying is good for you, right? When is it truly self-care, right? Because yes, unfortunately there's gonna be conflict, right? And people will cry during that conflict, right? It's releasing frustration and anger and things like that. Still healthy, right? But there are some negative contexts where we'll be crying.
Yes.
But let's focus on the good and look at when is it truly self-care. So crying becomes an act of self-care when it serves three essential functions.
Okay.
So let's look at that. Um, I'll take the first one, which is release and relief. So just as sweat cools the body, tears cool emotional heat.
Oh, I like
Did
thinking
you
about it
know
like that.
that? Yeah.
It's that's a neat reflection on that we can create an image in our minds
Mhm.
around.
Yeah, because we all are familiar with the whole sweat cools the body.
Yes.
But if you think of it, that tears cool emotional heat. 2014 study found that crying activates the parasympathetic nervous system, slowing the heart rate and breathing.
Wow.
So it's cooling your nervous system.
Yeah. And in that settling,
Yes.
if it slows the heart rate and our breathing,
Yeah.
it actually is calming then.
Yeah. This helps regulate your mood and restore balance. It's a biological safety mechanism that keeps us from emotional overload.
Wow.
So you better start crying, people.
So crying is also good for you.
Mhm.
If we move on to the second
Yeah.
area, we have release and relief. Then we have connection and compassion. Okay, two of my favorite words in the
So
entire
I thought
world.
maybe you'd want to do that one.
I could talk about those two
Yes.
topics till the end of time.
Yeah.
We probably have some listeners who know that about me. In terms of connection and compassion, a good cry, when shared with others, crying deepens empathy.
Mhm.
And I love that way to look at this because I think sometimes, as I said earlier, we feel a sense of shame when we share tears. We're like, I'm
Mhm.
putting something on you,
Yep.
I'm burdening you. I can tell the whole world, I feel very broad brush that
Mhm.
I can do this, that it's not received that way, hardly ever.
Right.
There could be some instances at that, but almost always someone who is bearing witness to an emotional experience for another person does not feel burdened.
Right.
They feel they feel like they are joining. They feel
Mhm.
like they are in.
Yep.
And empathy is this experiencing with someone, not for
Mhm.
them.
Yep.
And so I can absolutely see how crying deepens empathy.
Mhm.
Researchers from Tilburg University found that people who observed someone crying often felt increased compassion and willingness to help.
Yeah.
And from that, I would love listeners just take that in. Research found that observed that crying often made people feel increased compassion and willingness to help.
Mhm.
Just ponder in the Rolodex or file
Yep.
cabinet of your own mind the times where someone has cried in front of you and how you felt in that
Mhm.
moment. I know for me, it causes this. I want to be with you more. I
Exactly.
want to
Yep.
hear more about this. It
Yep.
increases my
Mhm.
sense of curiosity and
Mhm.
wonder. I would guess that that's pretty normative in the human experience. And so, for listeners to sit with,
Yep.
yeah, what have you been your experiences where someone has cried with you?
Yep. And just
Or in front of you?
self-reflect.
Mhm.
What is your reaction typically?
And that those tears invite support.
Mhm.
They foster the closeness that you and I are talking about.
Yep.
We remember those moments also, by the way. They write on who we are as a
Yes.
person.
Yep.
That sense of psychological well-being
Mhm.
and relational connection gets stored for
Mhm.
us. We do remember that.
It is. I recall there have been, since I became a therapist, I've had a couple of times where I've cried with a client. And the first time it just caught me off guard. And it was a client who had lost a pet.
Mm,
And I was so caught off guard. And of course, what's the first thing I said to the client? I'm so sorry I'm crying.
Mm.
And the client just looked at me and said, no, it shows you're human, right?
Mhm.
And it is that piece of ever since then, right? It's the idea of the therapist is human. And we all learn that, right, in school. Like the idea of like, show your clients you're human, you
Yes.
know? Um, we're all dog lovers in our office, as we,
Yeah.
we all know. In the idea of it is so true, whether it's a teacher or a therapist or a counselor or whoever it is, we are human, and that creates such a closeness when we show that side.
Mhm.
It's so important. So let's look at that idea of, along that same lines, in creating meaning, and then another therapy hot word, mindfulness. So sometimes tears come not from sadness. And this is where all the, big feelers come in, is that the beauty of it is it doesn't have to come from sadness.
Mhm.
It can come from just being in awe of another human being.
Yep.
It can come from being so grateful for another human that exists, or for an act of kindness that someone has given you. It's the so-called like moral elevation effect, in that these tears reflect our connection to something greater.
I and they totally do.
They do. They do. They connect to whether it is a purpose, a higher purpose, love, or beauty.
Mhm.
And some of you all who are listening might be like, ladies, do not tell me you have shed some tears over something being so beautiful. Oh, yes.
Absolutely. I have a very vivid memory that comes to mind of a sunrise, and uh and it was so stunning. It is, I can even still put myself back there. That's why I say those moments
Mm-hmm.
where we have allowed that to also occur,
Yeah.
they write on who we are.
Mm-hmm.
I so I have stored that in a very
Yeah.
vivid way.
Yeah.
And I was absolutely in awe of the world so much bigger than me in the
Mhm.
sunrise.
Yes. And that's the thing too. It's almost overwhelming,
Mhm.
and you're just so captivated by that.
Mhm.
So in this sense, crying is an act of mindfulness. It's a reminder of our capacity to feel deeply and to be moved. In each of these cases, tears serve as both a signal and a salve. They
Mm.
tell us that something matters, and in the telling, they help it heal.
I love that.
And I love that.
Mhm.
I So after hearing that last statement, it reminds me of a quote from the book The Shack.
Beautiful book.
It says, "Don't ever discount the wonder of your tears. They can be healing waters and a stream of joy. Sometimes they are the best words the heart can speak."
That's beautiful.
I just love it.
It's beautiful.
I'm like, I have nothing after that. This is just, we're done. We're done. Um, it is true in that I think sometimes tears can speak volumes. Like, you don't have to say anything, right?
No, and when I think all of us have probably been in at least a circumstance where someone has been crying
Mhm,
around us, that the some moments don't need words.
mhm,
That is the words. So
mhm,
it reflects it beautifully on
mhm.
on the heart is sharing what's
Yep.
going on.
Yeah, and I think both ends of the spectrum, right? Whether, and we've talked about this on the show, whether it is so profoundly tragic, there's no words and sometimes just tears,
Mhm.
but also on the other end, like your sunset or sunrise, it's so profoundly beautiful.
Mhm.
You don't have words,
Yep.
right? So, would you like to take the next one?
Well, the we move into the physiology of why crying helps.
Yes.
And so we talked about kind of what it is,
Yep.
what are the tears,
Yep.
but And we talked a little bit about how they help self-soothe.
Yep.
But to appreciate the crying as functions of self-care, it really is important for us to understand what happens inside the body when we cry.
Yeah.
We mentioned the endorphins,
Yep.
oxytocin. The process begins in the limbic system, specifically the amygdala and hypothalamus. These are
Yep.
the areas of the brain that are responsible for emotional processing. And when these areas detect distress, they send signals through something called the autonomic nervous system that activates your glands right near our eyes. So emotional tears start flowing, and people sometimes won't have any control over this.
Right.
They just start flowing. You and I talked about
That's okay.
we might do some things to try to get that to stop in some circumstances, but there are neurochemicals shifting as these tears flow.
Yep.
The cortisol stress hormones decrease. Those are, we're talking about, they're like released, that's released through the tears. Oxytocin and endorphins increase, promoting calm and pain relief. Prolactin, which helps regulate the immune response, rises.
Yep.
This is all happening, everybody, without us knowing what's going on,
Right.
possibly explaining why people often feel physically better after
Yep.
crying.
Like the whole phrase of, wow, that was a good cry.
Yeah.
Because this is happening.
Or you think about the times where maybe you've sobbed
Yep.
and you feel like calm.
Mhm.
It might be exhausted afterwards if it's been a really heavy
Yep.
cry,
Yep.
but that is that going on.
Yep.
The body moves from fight or flight to rest and digest. Super interesting. Our bodies are just doing this.
They are.
And crying is a full body exhale. I can actively think about a couple of circumstances right now when I think about a full body exhale, the emotional equivalent of lowering your shoulders after tension.
Mhm. Now, what I want to do quickly is, so Becky just named what is going on in your body when you're crying,
Mhm.
which is awesome. Now, we had talked about earlier about, well, what if you don't cry and you hold it in,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
So think about that.
Because we've all done that too.
Yeah, your cortisol's the stress hormones staying in your body,
Yep.
right? The oxytocin and endorphins are decreasing or staying the same.
Not present even.
So, right. So it's, you're not calming, you don't have a sense of pain relief. Your immune response is not getting better. You're not moving toward any type of rest and digest. So you could be staying in your fight or flight, right? So if you're dysregulated, you're in an argument or you are sad about something. So your body's staying in fight or flight. You have all these hormones going on and you choose to push it down. And then all you're doing every single time is doing the same thing.
Yeah.
Your body never gets the full body exhale.
No.
Ever. It never gets to take a step toward rest and digest. And so think of, and I won't go into detail because we have talked about it more than a couple times on our show about the physical consequences or ramifications of, if you hold that in, what does it do?
Of holding those emotions.
Yeah. But it does have an impact.
Yep.
So, though, let's focus on the positive, the art of allowing yourself to shed that stress and to give yourself that peace. At its core, and we talk about how important self-care is in your practice, in, everyday life, with our friends. It's about permission, the courage to just let the emotions move through instead of against us.
Like we're not fighting it.
Oh, just like surrendering. We
Mhm.
just talk about all the time. We talked about at the very beginning regarding the quote about, we don't know what happened and when this shift took place, but we live in this culture that is all about just like, be stoic, be composed, don't cry. I think we're getting better as a society, but we still have a long way to go. Healing often does look like surrender. So breathe. It's okay to be soft. It's okay to cry. So I saw this and was like, okay, I'm going to remember to repeat this like 3 times. The next time tears come up, consider your body speaking. And instead of asking, how do I stop crying? Because we just said that. I think you had said that. You say to yourself, stop crying, don't cry, don't,
Yeah, do not cry right now.
try asking, what part of me needs to be heard right now?
That's amazing.
So that's why I put it in bold and italicized it.
And maybe we need to start wearing it as a giant lanyard,
100%.
right? And
T-shirts.
yeah, what part of me needs to be heard right now? Your body is, as we've talked about on this whole show, engaging in a physiological experience
Yep.
that is beyond the intellectual. This is something that we don't necessarily control.
No.
How these systems are interacting and what they're doing, and so there is a message that we're receiving that your quote, "What part of me needs to be heard right now," is saying how I need to receive the message. How do I listen to it?
Right. I think what you just said was such a good point about you don't have control. I think that part's really hard for people
Yes.
because people who are stoic and they like that control, I can control if I don't cry. But
Mhm.
the minute I start, I may not be able to stop.
Yep.
And that is scary for people.
Right. And that brings us to this: tears as a form of intelligence.
Yep.
A couple of statements that might cause some feels for people as they're listening. Think about these.
Yep.
Crying is neither weakness nor indulgence. It's a form of emotional intelligence. What a cool way to look at things, people. That
Love
if we
it.
didn't evaluate them, we just said this is a form of emotional intelligence, a biological language of release, connection, and renewal. That when we cry, we're not losing control, we're restoring it. Think about that. You're actually calming down. We've talked about that in the show today.
Yeah. So when someone says to you, "Ugh, you have no control. You're crying. Here you go." Say, "Listen,
Yeah.
I'm restoring it. I'm not
Yes.
losing it."
Yes. It is the process of settling.
Yeah. Healing.
And you highlighted a beautiful irony in tears,
Yeah.
that they are made of salt, which is the same mineral that preserves and heals. There's salt
Yeah.
in all sorts of ways. It's so interesting to me that, of course, they are.
It's so beautiful. Like, of course they are. Like, this is what I love so much about this.
Of course,
Yeah.
of course
Of
they are.
course they are.
But that's somehow fascinating to us. It shouldn't
It
be,
is.
it shouldn't be, and is. And
It is.
it is. So every time you cry,
Yes.
remember your body knows how to cleanse itself.
Yeah.
I think
It
the
does.
fact that if we don't let our brains get in the way,
Yeah.
our body knows what to do. And
It does.
you and I talk about that lots as therapists, that the body responds in these stunningly beautiful ways, that it knows to do that without us saying.
It does.
Or dictating, do this thing. So
It does.
your tears are your mind's way of saying, I'm ready to heal.
It is. So, my loves, let the tears fall. Feel all the feels. You deserve to heal. If this episode does not convince all of you that tears are healthy, that crying is healing and good for you, and it's not a sign of weakness, but it's a sign of restoration and strength and all those things. If this doesn't do it, I don't know what will.
And a way to build a relationship.
Yes, and connection.
So it is a way for, one of my thoughts is, go have a good cry by yourself. You can do
Yes.
that if you're,
Yes.
we can do that in the car,
Yeah.
or I've heard of lots of people talking about crying in the shower because nobody can hear them.
Yeah. Yep.
Those are all places to do that. But I would love to leave people also with this idea that, think about the relationships in your life. If you're a person who doesn't cry that often,
Mhm.
or who doesn't let yourself cry in front of people, you reserve that to when you're alone, who might be somebody who you could try this with? Because
yeah.
you've now highlighted for everyone, Tara, that there is relational deepening that happens through this process.
There is.
This is can be a conduit to trusting people more.
Okay.
So much to think about here. My mind is going on all sorts of topics. So we're going to head to a commercial break. But when we come back, we're going to talk through listener questions. Feels Out Loud will process your thoughts, your questions, all around the power of tears in just a moment.
Find yourself. You gotta find. Express yourself.
We are back again with Feels Out Loud, and this part of the show is where we talk through questions from you all, our listeners. If you have a question related to mental wellness, sharing feelings, or topics for each week that you would like us to process through, please visit our website at becomingtogethermn.com and find that Feels Out Loud page to submit a question directly. You certainly can also email us at contact@becomingtogethermn.com. We want to have you follow us on social media as well and hear from you and what you are wondering about.
A ginormous thank you to our listeners who have sent in questions about healing through tears. And there was one in particular that really stood out to me. And when I processed the question, I love any action step that we can give our
We do love
listeners.
those, yeah.
Yes. So I thought this one was a good one for this. So listener says, I know that crying is good for me. So I love that.
Mhm.
But sometimes I have a hard time stopping. And I thought, first of all, thank you for being so vulnerable. And second, I guarantee you're not the only one out there.
Yep.
So what can I do to attempt to regulate myself if that happens again? Such a great point, because many times we don't have someone around us
Yep.
who can help us regulate.
And that might be part of the reason that we try to stop ourselves to begin with. because
Exactly.
We say, well, I'm not going to be able to do anything about this once
Right.
it starts. So,
Yep.
and we talked about that in the last segment.
Yep. So going back to the article that we explored today, they also had some good tips. So let's look at some of those and then some of our own in that. First one is, let's look at some breathing that we can do. Let's try and ground ourselves. And this method, you can repeat it more than once if you need to. So don't, worry if the first time around doesn't work. So start out by slowing your breathing. Try the 4-7-8 method. So inhale for 4 counts, hold for 7, and exhale for 8.
Hmm.
And what this is doing, it's help calming your nervous system, slowing your breathing down.
I like that tip.
Because when we're crying, we're increasing, our breathing and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
So 4-7-8. Another one you can do is offer yourself containment, okay? Because crying can be super overwhelming. And again, we want to get back to that grounding. So you can place your hand over your chest or wrap yourself tightly in a blanket. If you have a weighted blanket, that's great too. And what this is doing is it's telling your brain, I'm safe.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. The other one is self-talk, is literally saying, so the second one, containment, is your brain registering safety, but you can also literally say, I'm safe. I'm allowed to feel this.
Yeah.
I am safe. And you can repeat it as many times as you want. Another one is just identify your trigger. Ask, what am I actually crying about? Many times, and we know this in therapy, many times why we're crying, why we're truly crying is not actually what we think we're crying about.
Mm.
Right? And so those
point.
tears are displaced. And so it's really, digging deep and seeing what that is. And also, and I use this method a lot when working with kiddos, is name your emotion.
Yeah.
And then that can help because, again, many times we associate crying with I'm sad. But oh my goodness, you can cry, I'm angry, I'm scared, I'm disappointed.
Yep.
And those things, it's just like use the feeling wheel.
Yep.
Right?
When we're talking about in the last segment, which part of me needs to be heard right now?
Yes.
Sometimes defining the emotion might get us more at which part of you is that.
Yep. So if you've used these methods and you notice the frequency and duration is increasing and you're like, this is really interfering with my day-to-day life, you please to consider reaching out to a family member or a friend or your primary doctor or a therapist, right?
Well
Because
said.
it can always be something else.
Exactly. And we're already at the end of our show for today.
Holy cannoli.
Thank you for listening, everyone, this morning. Join us next week as we process more mental health focused topics. And in the week ahead, be kind to yourself. Maybe have a good cry. Remember that connection fosters wellness, and your voice is one the world around you needs to hear. Share yourselves, friends.
Some will, some won't.